District Board of Education will come to order at 6:10. Welcome, welcome. Wait, I gotta get the date. It is June 29th, thank you, 2017. So everyone welcome. First up, our report out of closed session. Clerk Patel.
Please bear with me, this is going to be a long one. Closed session began at 4:11 p.m. Item number 1, in the matter of public appointment on a motion by T.J. Zane and second by Darshana Patel, the board voted to approve the appointment of Jennifer Burks for the position of Associate Superintendent of Technology Innovation. The vote was as follows: O'Connor Ratcliffe, Zane, Patel, Beatty, Sellers, all ayes, no other votes. Number 2, under item 1, in the matter of public employment on a motion by Board Member O'Connor Ratcliffe, second by Patel, the board voted to approve the employment of Todd Casson in the position of Executive Director 2, Learning Support Services. The vote of the board was as follows: ayes was O'Connor Ratcliffe, Zane, Patel, Beatty, Sellers, no other votes. Number 3, in the matter of public employment on a motion by Patel, second by O'Connor Ratcliffe, the board voted to approve the employment of Doug Johnson in the position of Executive Director 2, Learning Support Services. The vote of the board was as follows: ayes, O'Connor Ratcliffe, Zane, Patel, Beatty, Sellers, no other votes. Number 4, in the matter of public employment on a motion by Board Member Sellers, second by Board Member Zane, the board voted to approve the employment of James Dayhoff in the position of Director of Attendance and Student Discipline. The vote of the board was as follows: ayes, O'Connor Ratcliffe, Zane, Patel, Beatty, and Sellers, no other votes were cast. Number 5, in the matter of public employment on a motion by Board Member Beatty, second by Board Member Zane, the board voted to approve the appointment of Alan Henry in the position of Continuation Alternative School Principal. The vote of the board was as follows: ayes, O'Connor Ratcliffe, Zane, Patel, Beatty, Sellers, no other votes were cast. 6, in the matter of public employment on a motion by Board Member Beatty and second by O'Connor Ratcliffe, the board voted to approve the employment of Eric Takeshita, I had it in my head and I lost it, in the position of elementary school principal. The vote of the board was as follows: ayes, O'Connor Ratcliffe, Zane, Patel, Beatty, and Board Member Sellers abstained due to a conflict of interest, as his wife will be under his supervision. Item number 2, closed session, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. On a motion by Board Member Beatty, second by Zane, the board voted to approve settlement in the case of OAH 2016-110496 in the amount of $8,500. The vote of the board was as follows: ayes, O'Connor Ratcliffe, Zane, Patel, Beatty, Sellers. Item 2, closed session, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. On a motion by Board Member Beatty, second by O'Connor Ratcliffe, the board voted to approve settlement for case number OAH 2017-010342 in the amount of $40,000. The vote of the board was as follows: ayes, O'Connor Ratcliffe, Zane, Patel, Beatty, Sellers. No other votes were cast. 3, under that item in closed session, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. On a motion by O'Connor Ratcliffe, second by Zane, the board voted to approve case 0AH 2017-050009. In the original agenda item, this case was missing a 0, so please note that. To approve that settlement in the amount of $13,500. And lastly, number 4, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. On a motion by Board Member Beatty, second by Zane, the board voted to approve settlement for case ADR 2017-1 in the amount of $3,400. The vote of the board was as follows: ayes, O'Connor Ratcliffe, Zane, Patel, Beatty, and Sellers. No other votes were cast. And the last motion, the last item that was voted on in closed session, was item number 3, matter of conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. On a motion by Board Member Zane, second by Board Member Beatty, and by roll call vote, the board voted unanimously to approve the compromise settlement of case number 37-2016-14963-C0-P0-CTL in the amount of $15,000 and authorize the superintendent to execute the necessary agreements. There was no other reportable action. Closed session adjourned at 6:02 p.m. And that is all to report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patel. At this time, I invite you to rise to salute the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd note that all members of the Board of Education are in attendance tonight, and for our welcome to the public, Mr. Sellers. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I pause before we do that? Gosh, I just forgot, and we were chatting about it just a moment ago. To our 6 newly appointed people from closed session, I'd like to say welcome on behalf of the board, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Phelps briefly.
I'd like to have an opportunity to have you meet our new 6 appointed members of our leadership team. So if Ms. Jennifer Burks could please stand, I'd like to welcome you as our new Associate Superintendent of Technology and Innovation. I'd like to welcome to our new leadership team our new Executive Director of Learning Support Services, Mr. Todd Casson, the principal at Westview High School. He's not here this evening. He's actually in Hawaii, but we're very excited to have him as part of our leadership team. So congratulations, Mr. Casson. Here tonight, I'd like to ask Doug Johnson to please stand and welcome him as one of our new Executive Directors of Learning Support Services. I want to go back and just let you know that our Associate Superintendent of Technology Innovation is taking the place of our retired Chief Technology Officer, Mr. Bob Gravino. Our 2 Executive Directors are replacing our 2 Executive Directors who retired this year, Mr. Eric Lehue and Miss Elaine Confrancesco, who will retire. And then next we have our Director of Attendance and Student Discipline, Mr. James Dayhoff. If you could please stand, we welcome you to our team. Next we have, we'd like to welcome to our leadership team for our continuation alternative school principal at Abraxas, Mr. Alan Henry. He is currently not here this evening. He is in Colorado packing his bags, ready to come over here and begin work, and we'd like to welcome him to our leadership team as well. If Mr. Eric Dekeshka could please stand, we'd like to welcome you to Poway Unified as one of our principals, as the elementary school principal of Canyon View Elementary School. Eric comes to us from San Diego Unified, and we're excited to have him here. Welcome to all of you to Poway Unified.
So welcome, and please excuse me for almost forgetting that. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Sellers for the welcome to the public.
Welcome to the monthly meeting of the Poway Unified Board of Education. Item C is placed on our agenda to enable members of our community to bring items that are not placed anywhere else on the agenda to the board's attention. If you would like to address the board on any agenda item, please complete a speaker slip. All requests to speak must be submitted to the executive assistant before the agenda item comes up. If you are requesting an agenda item be pulled for public discussion from Section E, the consent calendar, a speaker slip must be submitted to the executive assistant now, as approval of the consent calendar is one of the first items up. Speaking time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, with a maximum of 15 minutes per side of each topic unless waived by the board president. There will be a 30-second warning when time is running out, and speakers may only speak on one topic under item C and may not defer their speaking time to another individual. If you have any written materials for the board to review that would provide more specific information, please submit them to the executive assistant. The Brown Act does not permit board action or extended discussion of any item not on the agenda, but your concerns will be referred to staff. With that, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Sellers. At this time, item A6 is approval of minutes. We have approval of minutes as presented for the May 30th, 2017 regular board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Waiting for a second. All right, thank you very much. On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Dr. Patel. Any discussion? Right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Right, that passes unanimously. Item A7, approval of our agenda sequence. Dr. Phelps. I can get it. We're asking for item E112, acceptance of gifts, to be moved forward considered prior to routine agenda items. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Dr. Patel. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Next one is our approval of consent calendar, and I'll start down at the end. Would you like to pull anything, Mr. Sellers? No, ma'am. Ms. Beatty?
No.
Dr. Patel?
No, thank you.
Mr. Zane?
E306, please.
And nothing for me. That takes us, okay, so with the exception of item E306 pulled by Mr. Zane, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. Beatty. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And I'm going to assume that was an aye from you as well? You were sipping your soda? Yes? Okay. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And that takes us to B1. This is the superintendent's briefing. Dr. Phelps.
All right. We have so many things to celebrate, including the success of all of our graduates, all 2,700 of them. Earlier this month, I had an opportunity to attend graduations at Mount Carmel High School and at Design 39 campus with their first ever 8th grade class. I know my fellow district leaders and board members also attended other high school graduations and middle school and elementary promotions. It is in these moments when we realize the impact of all of our hard work and the importance of our mission of college and career readiness. As educators, these opportunities allow us to share in our students' successes and accomplishments. Also noteworthy is the fact that we had $84 million in scholarships granted to our students here in Poway Unified School District. If you're visiting the San Diego County Fair, which runs through next week, I encourage you to stop by this student showcase. There, you'll see countless award-winning works by Poway Unified School students in all categories. For a complete list, you can refer to the board packet. Tonight's Excellence in Education piece, produced by our student interns, focuses on PUSD's effort to bring STEM to middle school students, especially to underrepresented groups. Here's what's been happening at Twin Peaks Middle School to try to close the achievement gap.
With automated cars on the horizon, future automotive engineers may be in this very classroom. In the STEM program at Twin Peaks Middle School, students are exploring robotics and coding.
I really like how we started to build with wax, like robots, but after we started programming them, it became even cooler than I expected it to be. So like in the end of the year, she told us we're gonna do something big, and now I know it's coding. It's really awesome, I would say.
The STEM program is in its first year at Twin Peaks, thanks to the support of the Bosch Community Fund and the Career Technical Education Department of Poway Unified School District.
So they approached our school district and asked us to propose something to them that they could support to try to get ethnic minorities, girls into STEM, students that typically aren't exposed to that or aren't in those classes. So we started this program at Twin Peaks.
The grant funds engineering kits and curriculum for students who may be exploring science and technology careers for the first time.
I like how it has to do with engineering because I always knew that I liked science and math, but I didn't really know what I wanted until I went into this class. I figured out that engineering is like what I like.
My favorite part is how we work together as a team and do the challenges with the robots.
The classes emphasize hands-on learning and problem solving.
Oh, I think it's been incredible. It really has helped to bring the learning alive for them. It's given them so many opportunities to explore different careers, to face challenges and learn to persevere and be persistent.
The learning environment is modeled after a workplace to prepare students for college and careers.
The challenges and expectations that I give them, we work directly towards the way it would work in a corporation or a job, or what would your boss want. So they say, am I going to fail? And I say, well, no, but you might get fired. It has a purpose to it.
After its first year's success, the grant will fund similar programs at other PUSD middle schools in the coming school year.
It's very exciting. Tonight, PUSD will also adopt our Local Control Accountability Plan, or our LCAP, for the 2017-18 school year. I want to thank Dr. Robertson and her staff for working so hard in putting this our roadmap together for our continued success. Also tonight, we will be adopting our 2017-18 proposed budget, which includes the expenditures necessary to implement our LCAP. Many thanks to our new Associate Superintendent of Business Services, Mr. Ron Little, Joy Romero, and the Finance Department for their ongoing hard work. We must take a proactive, creative, and collaborative approach to working our way out of this multi-year deficit scenario. So we will need to accomplish this work together with our staff, employee associations, and our community. We will be forming a district budget advisory committee this fall to do just that. We will continue to balance our budgets while maintaining our high-quality educational programs for Poway students. I'm confident that PUSD can and will do what is best for our students, staff, and our stakeholders. I want to extend another warm welcome to all of our new district leaders who are here in the audience, and are thrilled to have such a talented group of people join our team. We would also like to congratulate our dear colleagues who have left PUSD for either promotions and or retirements this year. That concludes my presentation. I'll turn it back over to President O'Connor Radcliffe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Phelps. Exciting, exciting, even in the summer. Woo. This takes us to board member reports, and I'll start at the end with you, Mr. Sellers.
Again, I have no formal report other than to say that I did preside over the promotion at Mesa Verde Middle School and the graduation at Del Norte High School. I also attended the graduation at Mount Carmel as a spectator, and as I say every year, this is my absolute favorite day of the year as a school board member. It is the pinnacle and the peak of all the work that is done by all the people in this district. Everyone is happy. It is just a privilege to be surrounded by so much joy. The parents are happy, the kids are happy, teachers are happy. Nobody gives a damn who I am, and it's just wonderful to walk around amongst that sea of happiness, and just to be a small part of it is really great. So congratulations to everyone in PUSD who made June 8th possible.
My board report tonight is in dedication of a former board member, Todd Goodchow, who passed away on May 31st. The common themes that emerged from both memorial services were Todd's kindness, humility, and graciousness. Those traits are also reflected in his family, his wife Mary, and 3 sons. It was nice to finally meet Todd's sons, whom I had heard so much about. Though Todd's life was cut short at the age of 56, he had a full lifetime's worth of accomplishments. Beyond being a successful businessman, Todd was also a dedicated public servant and philanthropist in our community. I served on the board with Todd for 2 years, and we had many engaging conversations over coffee and on trips to Sacramento for conferences. Todd and I also frequently met with community members together. He was always willing to listen and learn, occasionally change his mind on an issue, and help advocate for a community cause. During that tenure, Common Core was just coming to fruition here, and there was a lot of community engagement. Everyone who knew Todd also knew his passion for wrestling, his pride in Poway wrestling programs, and his contributions to them. Todd was equally passionate about public education and its ability to provide equal access and opportunity to the underserved. He was on the board of National AVID, which serves underrepresented students and promotes academic rigor and college readiness. When they held their conference in San Diego, Todd registered our entire board so that we could attend the seminars to learn about progressive educational programs to help all students achieve. Wes Moore, who wrote The Other Wes Moore, was appropriately the featured speaker. With his business background, Todd was also passionate about the use of technology as a tool for learning and was so excited to see Design 39 campus come to fruition. With the July 4th Rancho Bernardo Parade coming up and our annual tradition of PUSD representatives riding in the fire truck, I'm reminded that one year one of our high school bands could not afford the entry fee and so was not going to participate in the parade. Without hesitation, Todd stepped in and paid the entry fee for them. Traditionally, board members carry super soakers to douse the parade watchers. My first year, I was so excited and proud to have my kids' big water guns to spray water at the crowds, while Todd completely outdid me with some heavy-duty guns with much longer range than mine. Given the universal sentiments expressed about Todd since his passing, I have no doubt that his legacy will live on in our community. My thoughts and prayers will continue to be with his family. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I have just a few things to report from activities around the community. I was honored and humbled to participate in a few graduation ceremonies, including Oak Valley Middle School, where I certified the promoting 8th graders, Rancho Bernardo High School, where I accepted the graduating class, and Abraxas High School, where I also was able to accept that graduating class. While each graduation ceremony at each campus is tailored specifically for those students and the needs of those students, I was equally impressed with the accomplishments of the students at each school and wish them all continued success. I made time to pop into the district office staff luncheon where I was able to talk with some of our teachers and district staff about issues on a more casual basis than what we get to do up here at the dais. I also attended the National Field Day event for Poway Amateur Radio Society, where some local Boy Scout troops as well as some of our high school amateur radio clubs participated. This is a group that does help us with our emergency broadcasting services in our community and can be an essential tool to our community emergency services. On a personal note, I was able to complete my master's in board governance in a very short period of time since joining the board in November, and I attended my own graduation ceremony recognizing that. I'm looking forward to applying all the learning that I've done in these past several months in these classes and looking at best practices, applying those best practices to our work on this Board of Education. Lastly, I would like to welcome our new Associate Superintendent, Ron Little, to the dais. I'm already impressed with the work he's presented us with, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he can help us get through our budget challenges that are coming. And also welcome to all of our new staff members that are out here in the audience. I'm excited for all this change, and I think it's going to be positive for our district. Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, I'll begin with a thank you to Ms. Beatty for leading off her board report with some kind words about former board member Gutchow. I did have notes here to talk about him a little bit myself as well. I attended his funeral service, and it was very moving. He was a very generous man, fellow Eagle Scout. He actually was one who was always willing to step up and help out in the scouting program whenever I asked him to help out with some things. And, you know, I joked with my wife who, you know, for obvious reasons didn't get to know Todd as well as I did over a very short period of time. But I said, you know what, I never had a chance to tell Todd that he's responsible for getting me over my fear of Democrats. I mean, he was just a down-to-earth, honest-to-goodness great guy. And, you know, I remember on the campaign together, he, on more than one occasion, went around and he picked up some of my signs that had fallen down. I said, that is a man with some class act right there. So he will be sorely missed, and my prayers and thoughts stay with his family as well. Also, I did have the privilege of attending Poway High School's graduation, and there is a rumor floating out there that I got teary-eyed at my son's promotion at Black Mountain Middle School. It's true. It's a true rumor. And like Board Member Seller said, that is without a doubt the best time or the best day of the year for school board members. It was also fun to attend the Poway Unified School District Employee Barbecue here at the district office just recently. And I also want to extend a thank you to Superintendent Phelps and Director Ron. I forgot your last name. Little, sorry. Yeah, you're new. Give me another month. For your time, I believe it was just yesterday, right? A very worthwhile time spent with these two individuals and Board Member Beatty to review the school district budget in greater detail and all the different funds. It's very valuable and joy as well. Thank you for the time you put into that session, that study session for us. I appreciate it. Lastly, I'll close with the end of the school year. It almost slipped by, uneventful. We had a unfortunate event occur at my son's middle school, Black Mountain Middle School. There was a mistake made with the yearbook, and I went right from the promotion ceremony for Black Mountain Middle School next door to my son's promotion out of TK to K. Big deal. It's a huge deal. And while I was there, I had the privilege of talking with my son's preschool teacher, Lisa Milan. And she shared with me, she said, there's these two books that we teach in preschool that couldn't be more appropriate. And I think that we as a district are learning from this. One of them is called, and I brought them. I had to borrow them. This is actually, by the way, I read both of them last night. This was the easiest reading in all of my board prep. One is called Beautiful Oops. When you think you have made a mistake, think of it as an important opportunity to make something beautiful. And it's okay to make mistakes, where they talk about even grown-ups make mistakes. And so I think that people are going to make mistakes in the district, district-wide. It's important to keep that in context and move forward and learn from the mistakes and make good things happen. So thank you very much. By the way, you can look at these books. Anybody wants to look at them afterwards, right here.
I knocked down your signs. Just kidding. Before the school year ended, I had a chance to visit one more school. Garden Road Elementary held a fabulous final Friday Flag of the Year, and they had a really fun field day afterwards, too. The whole school participating, parents. I mean, campus was packed. It was really neat. Got to hear the school chant, celebrate student character, their running club, their mileage awards, retiring staff, parent, and campus volunteers of the year. And I just want to thank the students, parents, and staff for the wonderful welcome there. And Principal West is new for showing me around campus. That is a really unique campus out there, and great visit. And then we entered the rush up to the last day of school, 5th grade promotion at Adobe Bluffs with my niece, and I did not cry, but it was very moving, just the same. Bernardo Heights Middle School's 8th grade promotion with Miss Hueso. It was fun to hear the students there talk about their favorite teachers, including 8th grade humanities teacher, Miss Bungard. I have to call her out because she was also my 8th grade humanities teacher. She's been teaching quite a while. She was wonderful then and apparently still wonderful now. And then I celebrated with Dr. Robertson and our new LSS director, Todd Casson, at Westview High School with 571 new PUSD alumni. That was really fun, including my cousin there, who I got to hand her empty diploma cover, but that was a lot of fun, too. I never saw our student board member, Ella Smith, but I know she was there, too. That's a big group out there. That was a lot of fun. And speaking of Ella, if you have not seen it, check out ed100.org for what student board members should know before they start by our own Ella Smith. The last time she and I met, she was reflecting on her year here sitting with us, and she said that she would have loved to have a handbook when she first started out on our board, but there wasn't one. So clearly she did something about that. So I love it. That way to be proactive, and look out UC Berkeley. She's coming. I can't wait to see what she does next out there. I want to kind of wrap this up, but we're a few weeks into summer now. Things haven't really slowed down much. Our extended school year started a couple weeks ago, and my son is there, as did our youth enrichment program camps, and my daughter is there enjoying her CSI-themed class on Mount Carmel's campus and walking around as a 10-year-old like she's some big kid on the high school campus. She loves it. Our team is in learning, planning, and recharging mode at Poway Unified. I attended the California Labor Management Initiative 2-day summer institute here in San Diego and Mission Valley with Dr. Phelps and representatives from learning, business, and personnel departments, and our union leaders. That was really thought-provoking, some real powerhouse speakers there, including our state superintendent, Tom Torlickson, international education leader, Michael Fullen, and really inspirational UCLA professor, Pedro Noguera. Lots of great information and inspiration there. And on the recharging just for fun front, Dr. Phelps mentioned, head out to the San Diego County Fair. I spent some time just looking at the work of our many, many talented PUSD student exhibitors. There are a lot of ribbons out there. It's great. And because Ms. Beatty brought it up, I'm really looking forward to our RB Spirit of the Fourth parade next week. My first year on the board, Ms. Beatty introduced me to that tradition of bringing super soakers on board our fire engine to spray people along the route. So if you're planning to line the road out there, look out. We're coming for you. All right, and that's all I've got. So thanks very much, everyone. Yeah, get on that. Be prepared. All right, and with that, we'll move to item C, and this is public comment. Clerk Patel.
We do have several speakers tonight. First, I'd like to call Jessica Shee.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Shee. I'm speaking on behalf of PUSD Parents Group tonight. PPG is a fast-growing nonprofit organization focusing on sustainable quality education and health for all PUSD students. On behalf of PPG, I would like to urge the district to change the use of educational technology from mandatory or quasi-mandatory to optional, and to provide paper-based curriculums as a standard option to ensure that every child has a safe learning environment and an equal opportunity to learn. Increasing data confirm that digital devices have serious detrimental health impacts such as computer vision syndrome or electronic screen syndrome. I spoke about computer vision syndrome at the last month's board meeting, and I'll focus on electronic screen syndrome tonight. Electronic screen syndrome refers to broad negative impacts of screen time on mental and health and emotional health. Researchers identify following behaviors associated with electronic screen syndrome: irritability, oppositional defiant behavior, poor eye contact, insomnia, learning difficulties, poor memory, lack of focus, tantrum, and digital addiction. Children and teens are the most vulnerable victims. Some children are so enticed by screens that they lose interest in other activities. And very often their parents are pleased initially mistakenly think such intense interest as the children's newfound excitement for learning, only later realize with great dismay that their children are getting addicted. So in short, digital devices are not an appropriate learning tool for kids at risk of electronic screen syndrome. Providing paper-based curriculums will give children at risk of electronic screen syndrome a safer learning tool, enabling them to develop their learning brain and their emotional health, and enable them to unleash their full potential. Providing paper-based curriculums will prevent increasing incidents of mental disorders among the youth in the U.S. Recent data from the National Health Center show that as of 2015, 10.2% children aged 5 to 15 were diagnosed with ADHD. It's more than 800% increase in 10 years. Experts believe that increasing screen time drives the sharp rise in ADHD among children. And providing paper-based curriculums will also allow better use of district budget by saving hefty expense on unnecessary digital devices. We can allocate district's budget to academic programs that truly improve students' learning. Every child has a right to pursue a healthy and productive life. Let's put our kids first. Thank you.
Next, Yan Yang.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yan Yang, and my son is studying in Mountain Ridge Elementary School. And today we just want to talk about the bilingual program set up in the elementary school. It's very important to develop a kid's brain when we develop multicultural or the bilingual program. This is a very proof we can accept this concept, but right now I think we didn't set up the bilingual programs in every elementary school, and that will be that the kids lose some opportunity to learn some new fields. Use the bilingual programs, open a new way and open a window for the kids at the age of kindergarten to first grade. That will provide the kids many opportunity to learn and reach the new world, and will help them to develop their brain and also grow up as a global civilization. That's all the view. Thank you.
Ying Su.
Good evening. My name is Ying Su. I'm here also to support the bilingual programs. Tons of research has shown elementary school kids are at their best age to acquire a second or even a third language. From age 5 to 12 years old, they learn language naturally. They do not have to understand the grammar structure. They imitate the pronunciations and intonations naturally without accent. Other benefits supported by research are, better learning skills, better listening skills, communication, literacy, larger vocabulary, improving creativity, better working memory, and better focus, concentration, and attention. I believe we all realize the importance of bilingualism and multiculturalism. However, we have to admit the fact that second language education is not included in public elementary schools curriculum. Among the 25 elementary schools in Poway Unified, the Spanish bilingual program offered at Valley Elementary School is the only program that teaching a second language at elementary school level. I must say the bilingual Emerge program operated at Valley is very successful. I heard many positive reviews from the parents and the kids. I want to enroll my daughter to this program, but the waiting list is too long. Considering the size of the program, only being able to admit 60 kids in total each year, it is harder and harder for kids from other school residency to enroll. The needs of bilingualism is growing, yet underserved. I hope the Spanish Emerge program or other bilingual programs that are in discussion could get more support from the board. We all understand that introducing a second language to our elementary school kids is important. The brain benefits are clear through studies. As parents, we all want to give the best we could to our kids. In this global economy, we should make every attempt to bring a second language education to our elementary schools. I understand the School Unify has a lot to consider, such as budget, curriculum design, and recruiting highly qualified teachers. I want to say, us as parents are here to work with the Unify to make nice things happen to our kids. Thank you.
Dr. Phelps, as a point of information, could you briefly describe the Mandarin program at Adobe Bluffs Elementary School?
As far as where we are in the stat, from what I understand, that Adobe Bluffs is going to begin the Mandarin dual immersion Mandarin program at Adobe Bluffs beginning in kindergarten this coming fall, right?
not this coming fall yet. So what we've done is we've opened up the FLES program, that involves everybody into the cultural aspects of the Chinese culture. We opened it up for IDTs to come into that school, and we have actually grown the kindergarten class there for parents that are interested in going there. And as soon as we can develop a long-term plan around doing that, we are definitely going to start it at kindergarten and matriculate all the way to high school.
One of the ideas that we explored and we're looking into is potentially looking at how do we immerse or add on to our exploration wheel a second language portion of that in all of our schools.
It's so infrequent. Thank you very much.
Janet Latang.
Good evening, Superintendent Kim Phelps, Superintendent's Council, and Board Trustees. My name is Janet Latang. I'm the proud parent of 4 wonderful children, and Dr. Phelps, you probably don't know, 3 of them are college graduates, 2 of them, one in master's, one in med school, the other has her degree, undergrad, and my youngest is entering his senior year at Poway High School. I'm grateful that my children were able to participate in most of the music programs that were available to them in their schools, and they have been really major users of the music program. It is my hope that someday all POSD students will have equal access to quality music programs in all of our schools. In last year's 2016-17 LCAP, Goal 1 called for a task force to develop a visual and performing arts vision for our district with specific implementation for this upcoming school year 17-18 at the elementary schools and refinement at our secondary programs. But that did not happen this year, so the development of a Visual and Performing Arts Task Force was put on hold until the 17-18 school year. Creating a task force for the visual and performing arts is not a new idea for PUSD. Actually, a Visual and Performing Arts Task Force has been mentioned in each PUSD LCAP since the year 2014-15. So I'm bringing this up, and I feel confident that 2017-18 is the year that PUSD will complete its goal of a Visual and Performing Arts Task Force, and then looking for implementation in years coming past that. Since the performing arts are supported so strongly by the community, both with concert attendance and financially, a lot of the programs are paid for by parent donations. I hope that PUSD will invite community members to join this Visual and Performing Arts Task Force. I think that they would have a great voice for this and make it a stronger task force. I also ask that during the 2017-18 school year, school board members request updates on the PUSD Visual and Performing Arts Task Force meetings and findings. Please, this fall, let us begin this necessary work to ensure that in the years to come, all PUSD students have access to equal performing arts programs at all our schools. Thank you very much.
Next is Dr. Darlene Willis.
Something first. So good evening. I'm Dr. Darlene Willis, and I have my address on the form, but I'm not going to state it because the last time I stated my address, I was stalked. So I'm not going to state it tonight. But I come to you tonight to give what I call Poway kudos and Poway concerns. I want to give kudos to Eric LaHue, who's now retired, and his quick thinking in the incident that happened at Black Mountain Middle School, how he called us in to talk with us and to seek our input. But I do have some concerns, and I loved what Trustee Zane said about the book's beautiful oops, and it's okay to make mistakes. And I think it is okay to make mistakes, and I totally support Trustee Zane, but I think it's a challenge for us to keep making the same mistake. And what I passed out to you is what is on the PUSD website. There's a beautiful video that explains what makes PUSD such a special place for our students and staff. And if you look at the picture, I don't know if you've noticed it, but there are no black students in any of these 3 pictures that are featured. although I know that there are black students in this school district. The video goes on to show students playing sports, band. Many of our college-bound students are in the band. It's been countless hours, yet none of them are featured. And I'm concerned that Poway is making the same mistake over and over again. While I appreciate the new staff that has been hired, I still see no one that looks like us, and that is of concern. And when Martha Parham left 4 years ago, she retired, she was never replaced. I'm concerned that the folks at the table, because you don't have to be black to catch this, but no one is catching that black students that are very well represented and do very well in this district, black families, are not represented on the main website. And this video has gone viral, saying how wonderful Poway is. And I think it's a concern. And I've brought this to the attention of staff, administrators, and others, but it seems to fall on deaf ears. So I'm here tonight humbly asking for you as the board. I think it's time to set policy or to make sure that there's administrative regulation, because unfortunately I think we have to mandate that whoever is checking these things, because someone should have checked that yearbook at Black Mountain, but it's a mistake, we understand that. But if we keep doing the same mistakes, this video has been on the website for months now, and no one has brought it up as an issue. So I know we can do better, and I'm coming to you as a humble, respectful person. I'm on your side. I believe in this district, and I know and have witnessed, and my sons that are now 26 and 29, they're doing well they did well in this district. So please consider putting together a policy, because this has to change. We cannot keep doing the same things over and over again and repeating the history. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Mrs. Willis? Dr. Willis? I know we're meeting tomorrow for the first time,
yes,
and it's a pleasure to hear from you. I just want you to know that you do have my sincere commitment that I will ensure that we will use a better filter to ensure that all students are represented. And I apologize for that, and we will address it immediately.
Thank you,
You have my
Superintendent
commitment.
Phelps. Thank you very much.
Our last speaker under public comment is Cindy Zhang.
Good evening, the Board of Education and committee members. I'm Dr. Cindy Zhang. I'm the founder of Queen's Bilingual Academy in Rancho Penasquitos. My academy focuses on what we call the learning by doing method, such that children are constantly interactively engaged in the classroom. However, another aspect I focus heavily at my school is learning Chinese language and culture. We run programs year-round for students ages 3 to 12. As a result, it has revealed to me that more and more parents want their kids to be exposed to the Chinese language. Tonight, I'm representing Poway Parents Group to speak for bilingual education. Specifically, we would like to ask the Board of Education to consider adding Chinese education to more elementary schools in our district. The importance of Mandarin Chinese has grown greatly, with China today being classified as one of the largest trading partners of the U.S. Many employers now look for employees that can speak Chinese. One example of Chinese being deemed important is that now on the Kids channel, Nick Jr., it features a show called Ni Hao Kailan, which teaches Mandarin Chinese to kids ages 4 and up. In addition, today there are approximately 550 elementary, junior high, and senior high schools in the United States that have implemented Chinese programs, which has been a 100% increase in the past 2 years. The Chinese program offered at Adobe Bluffs in our district is highly regarded. Because the Poway Unified School District is now for its education, the incorporation of teaching Chinese in more elementary schools will allow the district to further stand out and help students achieve higher academic excellence with this new skill. I would also like to emphasize why Mandarin Chinese should be taught specifically at a young age, such as elementary school level. English and Chinese are two very different languages, and it requires a lot of critical thinking in order for students to master the language. It has found that the best time to learn a new language is from ages 4 to 12. In addition, learning a language at a younger age results in better linguistics, better cognitive skills, and better problem-solving and critical thinking skills for students. There are also culture enrichment benefits and culture exposure such that kids are more accepting of a diverse society. Therefore, Mandarin Chinese should be taught in more elementary schools of our district in order for students to acquire these benefits. Thank you for listening.
That's all.
All right, thank you, everyone. That takes us to our early agenda item, E112, acceptance of gifts, to Dr. Phelps.
At this time, I want to welcome Dr. Elaine Cofrancesco from Student Support Services, April Agarin, our Youth in Transition Program, and Kelly Hughley, a representative from Keller Williams Realty. Keller Williams hosted a Red Day walkathon last month, raising $7,000 for youth in transition. Over 100 realtors and community members, including our own board members, Ms. O'Connor Radcliffe and Trustee Patel, walked the 5K to support PUSD's Youth in Transition Homeless Education Program. They're here to present a check to our school district.
I don't really have anything planned, but I just wanted to say thank you, board members, for all the hard work that you do for all the Poway School District families. I don't know that a lot of us, without attending these meetings, realize how much work you must put into this. So I just wanted to say thank you. And the Keller Williams Realty offices all over the world shut down one day a year to donate back to the community and do a charity for somebody in need. It could be a family with a child with cancer. It could be a community where somebody needs housing, and we decided to sponsor the Youth in Transition program this year. So we thought that was a great program, and we realized there's been some cut with the funding, and with over 300 homeless families in the Poway School District, we were really surprised, and we're going to continue to support this charity with our Keller Williams office charities that we'll do all year round. So we, in honor of the Youth in Transition program, we have a check that we'd like to present for this amazing program.
Thank you very much. That really was a wonderful event. Thanks again. You said you were going to continue supporting, so we'll be looking for it. Thank you. That takes us to our action items. D101 is the first, ratification of student discipline. Dr. Robertson.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we bring forward one case of student discipline for the board's ratification.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All right, on a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Dr. Patel. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Item D102, ratification of stipulated agreements for student expulsion. Dr. Robertson.
Thank you, Madam President. Our Office of Attendance and Discipline has been very busy. We bring forward 7 stipulated agreements for the board's action.
Motion to approve all 7.
Second?
Any discussion? All right, on a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Dr. Patel. All in favor of approving all 7? Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Sellers, could you be more specific? Okay, then that passes unanimously. Thank you. Sorry, I saw the head shake. I wasn't sure. Thank you. Item D103, readmission of student on expulsion. Dr. Robertson.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we bring forward 1 readmission for the board's action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on this item? On a motion by Mr. Sellers, second by Mr. Zane. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously as well. That takes us to D104, adoption of PUSD Local Control and Accountability Plan for 2017-18. Dr. Robertson and Mr. Little. Mr. Little, you are new. Are you a Dr. Little or a Mr. Little? Mr. it is. I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. So tonight we bring forward, after a first read with Business Support Services and Learning Support Services from our May board meeting, our district's LCAP plan. In terms of actions and services, really the main difference, because it is pretty much a rollover plan, is a curricular-focused English, language arts, and ELD, and early literacy in the elementary. And we're moving forward with all science. We still will continue all our literacy work in all content areas, including all of the electives. And we'll also be starting some of our standards work in the world languages. Do you have any comments you want to make? Yeah. That's our presentation of the board.
Any questions for Dr. Robertson? I just wanted to make a quick comment. I'm very pleased with all of the areas that you highlighted that are a little bit different this year. I think those have come up over and over again as concerns in our community and of the board. So thank you very much for making sure those were incorporated. I'm excited.
No problem.
Motion to approve.
Second.
On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Dr. Patel. It was close. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously as well. Thank you for all the hard work. I know that is a long time to prepare that.
If it's okay, I do want to give a shout out not only to Joy Romero, but also to Mercedes Hubschmidt, who was really kind of my right-hand person around all this work, and really the whole team. So it is a group effort around all this, all our principals that ran LCAP forums, you name it, district-wide effort. So thank you to everybody.
All right, this takes us to the 200 Series D201, approval of the Associate Superintendent Technology and Innovation Employment Agreement. Ms. Hueso.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Phelps. This item is the board's discussion and possible approval of a contract of employment with Jennifer Burks as Associate Superintendent, Technology and Innovation. The proposed agreement contains the following material terms. The term is from July 17, 2017 to June 30th, 2020. The first year's salary is $172,524, step 1, on the Associate Superintendent salary schedule. The salary step increases each year according to the salary schedule upon receiving a satisfactory evaluation. She is entitled to receive the same health and welfare benefits as other district certificated management employees. She has the same vacation benefits as other certificated management employees under district policy. Specifically, she will be entitled to 26 vacation days per year. She can accumulate a maximum of 52 days. Once she has accrued 52 days, she will accrue no more days until her accrued total is below 52. Only upon separation from employment with the district, for example, resignation or retirement, will she be entitled to payout of any accrued unused vacation not to exceed 52 days. The Associate Superintendent will be entitled to longevity step increases as follows. a 2.5% increase at the conclusion of 10 years of service in Poway Unified School District, a 2.5% increase at the conclusion of 15 years of service in Poway Unified School District, a 2.5% increase at the conclusion of 20 years of service in Poway Unified School District, and a 2.5% increase at the conclusion of 25 years of service in Poway Unified School District. The increase at each step shall not be calculated on a compounding basis. The Associate Superintendent will receive the same doctoral stipend as other district management personnel. The district will pay the cost of a life insurance policy insuring the Associate Superintendent in the amount of $200,000. In the event the district decides to terminate the contract without cause, the Associate Superintendent will be entitled to compensation equaling her then current base salary for the lesser of 6 months or the remaining term of her contract. The payments will be made on a monthly basis. She will also be entitled to continued benefits for the same term as the base salary payments. That concludes the summary of the contract.
Very thorough. Are there any questions for Ms. Hueso before we take a motion? All right, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Beatty, second by Mr. Zane. Any further discussion before we vote? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Congratulations, Ms. Burks. We look forward to seeing you up here at our August meeting, and then you can tell me if you're Ms. or Doctor. Thank you very much. Okay, on to D202.
Just for the record, it's Mr. Purvis, not Dr. Purvis. I just want to put that out there as well. Sorry.
D202. Approval of resolution number 102-2017 entitled Resolution Regarding the Elimination or Reduction in Hours of the Classified Position as Contained Within Exhibit A, Corresponding Layoff of Classified Employees. Ms. Hueso.
Staff respectfully submits to the Board for action the approval of Resolution 102-2017 as presented. Attached to the resolution, you will notice the position that is being recommended for reduction of hours. And as stated in the resolution, this is due to potential layoff or reduction of hours due to lack of funds or lack of work within the Education Code sections 45117 and 45308, respectfully submitted.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. Beatty. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. D301, adoption of the 2017-2018 proposed budget and approval of related criteria and standards. And this will be a presentation before we take any action. Mr. Little.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate it. Good evening, board members. Good evening, Superintendent Phelps, district leadership, PUSD team members, and community members. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for the warm welcome over the past month. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and beginning our working relationship together. This evening, I'm pleased to present the 2017-18 district budget for the board's consideration and approval. As you know, building a solid budget is a team endeavor, as Dr. Robertson mentioned, and I'd just like to acknowledge and thank all of the district leadership and district team members, and another kudos to our finance director, Joy Ramiro, for all the heavy lifting she's done over the past few months. So now on to our agenda for this evening. So we're going to look at the budget framework that we built the budget upon. We'll look at the proposed budget that the board is considering, and then we'll look at some multi-year projections. And you'll note that as we go through the presentation that I'll reference the 2017-18 proposed budget book, which is a hard copy available for the public, and also the board was given previously, just which provides a little bit more detail and a breakdown of all of our funds that we're asking for approval for in 2017-2018. So the proposed budget is developed using certain fiscal assumptions and fiscal standards, and these are the key concepts that provide our budget framework. So we have the 2017-18 proposed budget assumptions that the governor used in the May revise. That's our COLA, our LCFF funding related to the funding gap, some one-time discretionary funds which are being deferred under the May revise, which has since changed, and the fact that we'll have no cash deferrals. Our budget is also predicated on our own district assumptions. These are things such as enrollment projections, the cost of step and column movement for our staff, the cost of health and welfare for our staff, and these are delineated in pages 11 and 12 of the budget book in detail, and you can check them out there. Our budget is also developed in accordance with the criterion standards developed by the CDE. When the board approves this budget, they'll be also approving the criterion standards checklist, which is attached. And finally, our multi-year projections are based on the fiscal assumptions provided by School Services of California. So this is a familiar graph, I'm sure. This is a pie chart of our estimated revenues for next year, 2017-2018. So you'll see that our LCFF revenues are about 82% of our total $352 million pie. Our other state revenues include funding for special ed, CTE, lottery, and other state programs. That's the $41.9 million slice. That's about 12% of our pie. The federal monies include our Title I, Title II, a little bit more special ed money. That's about $9.4 million. That's about 2.5% of the pie. Our local income is about $12.2 million. That's about 3.5% of our pie. And then the final slice are transfers in from other funds and other sources. This is our pie chart for the expenditure side of the budget. You'll note that the salaries and benefits next year are projected at nearly $315 million. That represents about 85% of the expenditure budget. Supplies represent about 4% of the budget. That's $15.3 million. Services represent about 9% of the budget. That's $32.2 million on our pie slice there. Capital outlay is about $1.4 million. That represents a little less than 0.5% of our total pie. And then the transfers out and other uses make up the rest of the expenditure chart. Okay, so here's a different look at our revenues. And what we've added to the numbers that you just saw is a comparison to the numbers last year. So the YOY is the year-over-year change. So how much have these revenues changed in the current year, 2016-2017 as a base? So you can see overall, I won't go through all these numbers, you can read them for yourselves, but overall our revenue picture has decreased about 5% compared to this year. For good reason. We got less money in the 2017-2018 budget than we did this year for one-time discretionary funds. In the current year, we took out, we entered some debt issuance in terms of capital loans for some technology refreshes and some other needs. So those were additional revenues that we had coming into 2016-2017 that we will not be undertaking or not receiving next year in 17-18. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of this as we go through this. Excuse me. So on the flip side, we did a similar comparison with the expenditures, right? So here are the same expenditure numbers you saw on the pie chart, only now we're looking at the year-over-year change. So a slight increase in certificated salaries, 1%. That's pretty much just step and column movement. Classified salaries, step and column movement, and a few additions. That's a 3% increase. Employee benefits, as we know, PERS and STIRS continue to go up. We'll see a slide on that a little bit later to see the impacts of that. And health and welfare premiums for a total of a 7% increase over the current year. Because we're getting less one-time money, Because we're getting less capital money, we would expect book and supply expense to go down as well as capital outlay expenses to go down, and that's exactly what you're seeing here compared to the current year. So overall, you can see that our current expenditures for next year are projected at about the same that they were this year. So it's off by about 0.1% when comparing the two. So net activity is simply the revenues that we expect to receive in our budget year, less the expenditures we expect to use in our projected budget year. So given the numbers that we just shared, our revenues of $352 million, our expenditures of a little over $369 million, you can see that our net activity is a negative $17.25 million. So in other words, we'll be deficit spending in our general fund next year by approximately $17 million. So this deficit will be covered by our district's general fund reserves. The district has done a good job over the many past years building up the reserve. So we're projecting our beginning balance next year, our general fund balance, of being a little over $60 million, 60.4. We'll have the deficit of 17.25, which will come out of that reserve. And we're projecting our ending fund balance at a little over $43 million. That $43 million represents about an 11.7% reserve. We expect to finish this current year at about a 16% reserve. So you can see the impacts, right, of 1 year of deficit spending. So I like to say that any district can strategically deficit spend once and maybe twice, but really we want to be vigilant about mitigating a multi-year structural deficit, which once established is very difficult to resolve. So that's the work that we'll be doing over the next year. So we've mentioned the reserves are $43.15 million. These are simply the components of that reserve. This is what makes up that reserve. We have some revolving cash and some inventory. We have our restricted funds. These are carryovers. We have unrestricted carryover projected, mostly at the sites. We have a 2% economic reserve that we must have by law. That 2% is $7.4 million-ish, and the rest is available for our use, $28.5 million. And that brings the total, as we said, to $43.15 million. We wanted to note also just the contributions that our general fund makes from its unrestricted side of the ledger to the restricted side of the ledger. So the unrestricted side obviously has much more flexibility, and so it's necessary sometimes to support the work that the restricted side of the house does. The restricted side of the house is mostly grant programs and, of course, special education, which is important to the work that we do. So the unrestricted side is contributing about $38.5 million we're projecting next year to special ed. That's about 59% of the special education budget. So what does that mean? That means that we're not getting the level of support that we would hope and expect from the federal government and from the state government and the districts across the state. 60% is about the average of what districts contribute to special ed, given the funding, the reality of the funding that we're receiving from those other two sources. Our routine restricted maintenance count is about a $10.2 million contribution. That's about 3% of our total expenditures, which is what is recommended and eventually required by the state. And then we have a little bit of a match. That's the TPP program of $63,000. So the contributions from one side to the other is about $48.7 million for next year. This slide provides a high-level summary of the district's other funds budgets for 2017-2018. So you can see on the slide that for each fund, for example, Fund 11 is our adult education fund. For that fund, we've noted our projected beginning balance next year for, in this case, $146,175. The anticipated net activity of that fund, so that would be the revenues minus the expenditures. So we anticipate adult ed having a surplus of $106,685 next year. And then the projected ending fund balance at the end of next year, which is simply A plus B, or minus B if it's a deficit. So their projected ending balance is $252,860. Again, each fund has a lot more detail in the budget book, and that's provided on pages 5 through 10 for your reading interest, maybe tonight as you want to go to sleep. And we can address any questions you have about any of these funds. So we thought it was also important to share with the board and the public again the multi-year impacts of the STRS and PERS increases to the general fund. So what we provide here is a 6-year analysis of the employee retirement benefits. These are only the employer contributions. So of course the employees themselves make a contribution from their pay, and the state contributes, right, from its general fund. So this is just what Poway Unified contributes from our side. You can see, starting with the top row, STRS, right? Last year we spent $16.3 million. This year we'll spend $20 million-ish. Next year we're at 23, and pretty soon, 3 more years out, we're at $31 million. Right? Significant impacts. The percentages you note below there are not the incremental increases year over year. Those are the actual percentages that the district pays for every payroll dollar. So you can see in 2016, 2017, for every dollar we paid a teacher, we had to pay an additional 12.58 cents to the state, to STRS, sorry. Next year, for every dollar we pay a teacher, we'll spend 14.43 cents on STRS. Works the same way for PERS. This year we spent 13.88 cents for every dollar that we paid a custodian, or my salary, for example. Next year we'll pay 15.5 cents for every dollar that we pay our classified staff. That's the cost of the retirement programs under these two programs. The PERS side, you can see, will also increase significantly. So from 13.8% in the current year, pardon that dollar sign all the way over there, that should be 23.8% in the out year of 2021. So in total, just sort of the bottom line, last year we spent a total of $22 million, STRS and PERS combined. Next year we're projecting to spend $32 million, so that's a 48% increase in just 2 years' time. And by 2020, 2021, we will have spent we'll spend another $44 million that year on STRS and PERS. So you can see in that 6 years' time, the costs will have doubled. Right? They will have increased by 100%. These are not so much projections as they are reality, because STRS rates are set in law by the legislature in Sacramento, and the PERS rates are set by the PERS board and are what they are. And the PERS board, of course, is managing a multi-billion-dollar portfolio, so they have a lot of sway when they come out with their rates. So these are really truly what we anticipate spending, unless things change in Sacramento to provide some legislative relief, right, on either of these. This is just a graphic representation of that same chart, and I won't go through that. So you can see the STRS is green, the PERS is blue, the total is red. This is not a chart you want to see on your expenditure side of the house anytime. As Superintendent Phelps mentioned earlier, our plan to address, so obviously looking forward, we know that we can't sustain a multi-year deficit. We have to do the work of looking at either increasing revenues, decreasing expenditures, or as Trustee Darsh reminded me yesterday, we could do both. Maybe it was Trustee Kimberly, yes, thank you. We can do both. So obviously we want to do both. Increasing revenue, decreasing expenditures. That's the work that we have in front of us. Here's the plan. As the superintendent mentioned, we'll be forming a district budget advisory committee soon. They'll begin hopefully meeting in August. We'll go out into the community and make some community budget forum presentations to sort of educate the public about sort of where we are fiscally. Then the DBAC will do its work, bring some recommendations back to Cabinet in November. As you know, we have to submit some recommendations, a list of reductions to the county with our first interim in December so that we can show that we have a plan to balance the budget moving forward. So this is our plan to begin the district-wide dialogue then that follows. So quickly, our multi-year projections, the picture doesn't get much better, I'm sorry to say at this point. So this slide is the 2018-19 fiscal year. So I'll draw your attention to the $8 million in brackets. That's another $8 million of reductions. So even with $8 million of reductions, you can see that we're still deficit spending $14.4 million. So that takes our ending fund balance to about $28.7 million, and now our reserve level is about 7.6%. And the following year, 2019-2020, we have that same $8 million. They have to be ongoing cuts, right? Ongoing reductions, so they're realized year after year. Then we make another $6 million of reductions, and we're still deficit spending $13.2 million, right? So pretty soon it's a black hole that you can't get out of, which was the point I was making earlier. So the more work we can do up front with respect to revenues and reductions, the better. That one would take our fund balance all the way down to 4%. Of course, we're only required to have a 2% reserve, but a prudent reserve across a district this size is at least 10%. The average reserve across the state in 2015-2016 was more like 16% in K-12 districts. But I think everyone's pretty much in the same boat, more or less, given stirs and purs. So all that being said, and given the assumptions we shared in the multi-year projections that we shared, we're asking for the board's approval of the 2017-18 budgets, certifying that the district can meet its financial obligations in 2017-18 and for the subsequent 2 fiscal years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Little. Anybody have questions for Mr. Little before we? Well, I'm ready for a motion then.
Not so much a motion just yet, just a comment. There might be some others, but dismal news to be sure. I mean, nobody likes to see this sort of financial picture painted. The only positive, and as I was sitting in this review yesterday with Board Member Beatty and Mr. Little, that I saw is if you look at page 4 of the spiral-bound document, there's more detail. We recognize we're doing 3-year projected budgets, so those numbers often change. We've adopted them in the past, and then the numbers were different 2-3 years later. I'm hopeful that maybe that's the case again by some stroke of luck. We come into a large amount of money, something changes at the state level, those numbers could change again. But I will note that our ending balance in our general fund in 2014-2015 was $40,804,971, and here we are projected year-end ending balance in 17-18, $43,154,887. So in spite of the fact that we had a deficit, a net activity, a deficit spend in 14-15 of about $15.6 million, and a projected deficit spend of 17.25, we're looking at being $3 million to the better on our ending balance over the 4 years. So one tiny, small silver lining in all of this, but that's all going to change drastically unless other things change drastically in the next couple of years. With that, motion to approve.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Then on there, we have a motion by Mr. Zane and a second by Mr. Sellers. And before we call the vote, I just want to make a comment to everyone that all of us had a chance to meet one-on-one with Mr. Little, and you gave a fantastic presentation the first time to us and answered a lot of questions. So you've saved us a lot of time here today, and thank you for giving an equally great presentation, maybe slightly less detail, but still very, very thorough for everyone here.
Thank you.
yeah, so I guess,
I'll just echo that comment and say that this 2017-18 proposed budget, with all the detail and the different funds, is probably one of the best tools that I've received since being on the board, and I think some other board members might agree.
I would agree. It is not
Thank you very
bedtime
much.
reading. It is great. Riveting, in fact. Yes.
Riveting.
No, it is great. Thank you. I don't think we've ever had anything like that before, so that was
thank you.
wonderful. Any other discussion or comments before we take this vote? All right, seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously, so thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for all
Thank
your
you.
hard work and your team.
Thank you.
Looking at you, Ms. Ramiro. Hiding back there. D302 is next. This is our approval of resolution number 148-2017 entitled Authorization of the Transfer of 2016-17 District Budgetary Funds Between Expenditure Classifications
More
after
yes.
June 30th, 2017. Yes, Mr. Little.
Yes, more riveting reading here. So as we close the books, sometimes so that we don't finish any particular object code in the negative, we have to move budget around. And so this is just so the monies have been expended, the budget's there, it is what it is. So we're just looking at moving budgets so that nothing's negative as we close the books for the fiscal year 2016-2017. This is giving the county the permission for us to do that.
Again, thanks to your background information on this, this item is far less confusing than it's ever been before, and
Good,
motion to
good.
approve.
Second.
On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Dr. Patel. Any discussion on this item? All right, then, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. D303, approval of resolution number 143-2017 entitled Authorization to Allocate the Monies Received from the Education Protections Act. Mr. Little,
Yes,
it's
thank
you again.
Thank you, Madam President. This is our annual statement of how we will utilize the Prop 30 EPA funds, which go to support instruction in the classroom, as you can see.
Are there any questions for Mr. Little? All right, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
On a motion by Ms. Beatty, second by Mr. Zane. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously as well. Batting 1,000. Good job.
Thank you.
D304, approval of resolution number 144-2017 entitled Authorization to Identify the Amount of Budget Reductions Needed in 2018-19 and 2019-20 and to require that a list of budget reductions for 2018-19 be included in the 2017-18 first interim report. Mr. Little.
Yes, thank you. This is a requirement of the county, as we mentioned, just to put them on notice that we're doing the work of identifying potential budget solutions to make sure that we can have a balanced budget and a positive certification moving forward, and certainly by first interim time.
The only remark I have, I made notes as I was reviewing this item, was that hopefully we will schedule specific dates for board budget workshops before this deadline and actually build upon the information that you provided in the past week or so.
Thank you.
And I just, Ms. Beatty,
no,
go ahead.
What deadline are you referring
First
to?
interim.
Prior to the first interim report in December 2017. I'll make a motion to approve at the same time as well.
I'll second.
Yeah, that's a motion by Mr. Zane and second by Ms. Beatty. My only comment was for anyone looking at our green sheet there wondering why budget reductions projected out differ in two scenarios there, using School Services of California versus using the Department of Finance. School Services is just a little more conservative. So if Department of Finance numbers end up being right, hooray, a little better for us. But we'll see going forward. Okay, so we have a motion on the table and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And this was pulled by Mr. Zane. This is item E306, which I guess, yes. Okay, so this is approval ratification of contractual services report number 11-2017, and this belongs to Mr. Little as well.
And Madam President, we do have two public comment cards on this.
Then, thank you, Clerk Patel. We should take the public speakers then before we move into discussion. So go ahead and call them.
So first, I would like to call Jeremiah S.
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of supporting College Bound. College Bound, a place where my fellow students and I come together and discuss, set, and execute a plan for our college and future careers. Me being in the program for my 6th year and also being the sophomore class president, the opportunities Ms. Marsha Dotson and Dr. Darlene Willis have given me play a huge role in securing a future. With meetings on Tuesdays once a month, Ms. Dotson gives us opportunities for scholarships, does routine grade checks, and sets up meetings with our counselors if needed. She gives us the extra boost to meet deadlines and stay focused when noticing we aren't on the right track with assignments and deadlines. Another instance is they motivate us into becoming great leaders. They teach us time management skills, for which we even have a pledge for. To be early is to be on time is to be late, and to be late is unthinkable. This is one of the amazing skills I can take away from the program every day and use in life tasks and activities. An example of this is leading by example. Being an upperclassman in the Mount Carmel Marching Band, I'm happy to set a good example for the underclassmen, even if it's with playing music, time management, and just giving them a nice, safe environment. From the College Bound program, I suggested for the band that we do bonding activities such as basketball games or picnics at Hilltop Community Park, in which I got this idea from the pasta parties we had held at multiple students in the College Bound program. They help us encourage other peers and gain the trust so we can create a safe environment. In conclusion, College Bound teaches us to be strong leaders, and it also helps us improve our academic performances. Thank you.
The second and last speaker is John Mokili.
Good evening. My name is Dr. John Mokili. I'm here and I want to speak humbly as a parent. I have 3 children. They all went to Poway and studied here at Poway Unified. And I'm here to try to present to you my 3 children. I'm a scientist, and you know that 3 is a very small sample size. But as a parent, that is big enough. Even a sample size of 1 is big enough. So for my children, they are very bright children, very smart children. I can tell, I think it looks like I'm biased because I know they went to elementary school. They all had very good grades. And I started finding that there was a problem when they entered the high school. You say that high school should be problematic, but I don't believe so, because I went through high school, I studied, and I was expecting to come to the United States to find the best education for my children. I have a doctorate in microbiology, and I thought that I need to go to a place where there is the best school ever, and I didn't make a mistake to come to Poway Unified. My children, the first one, I started having problems. His name is Benny. And it was only a coach who was able to rescue Benny. Benny succeeded, and he got his high school diploma that I have here. I'm very proud to have brought it with me. My second child, Daniel, started to have the same problem. I started blaming myself. I thought that it is probably because of my background. I came from a different culture, different country, and I'm speaking in my fifth language. Maybe that's the problem. Until I found out that other minority children are also struggling in this place. Then I received help from the college-bound program that I'm here to strongly support, to present to you that this is a worthwhile spending extra money for them. I'm not saying here for my children, I'm also saying it for other children who are going to come, because my two children, Daniel, also Daniel just graduated this week from Abraxas. Daniel would not succeed or graduated if there was not the help of the college bound.
I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Well, maybe before I ask Mr. Little anything, you can tell us if you had something specific you wanted to.
Sure. Thank you. Actually, I think Dr. Willis could attest to this. I had no idea that she and others from College Bound were going to be here this evening. And as coincidence would have it, this is the reason why I pulled this item. I would like to request that that particular line item be amended to reflect the dollar amount that they received last year, which was $50,000, not $25,000. I do understand, and I appreciate the fact that Dr. Robinson is in conversations with Dr. Willis about this item now, but I did want to pull it from consent in the case that it just got approved at 25 and not at the 50, and to the extent we can amend it and fix it now and move it forward. That's what I would like to do. I also appreciate the reminder of Dr. Willis's distaste for tardiness, because I will be visiting them again soon, and I almost forgot. I'm habitually late, so thanks for the reminder on that.
Did you ask a question there, or I'm...
Move to approve by amending to increase to 50 on the college-bound line item.
Do we have a...
Yes, I have some...
Do we have a second on that amendment first, that offered amendment?
It's basically offering to approve them all, only changing that item to 50.
Could I make a recommendation?
So want me to separate it out?
Yes, two different motions, or we could add the $25,000 back when we bring the budget adjustments back to the board in August.
That would work as well. I'm fine with that as well. Cleaner? In that instance, then I'll move to approve this item as is and look forward to the additional amount coming forward in August. Thank you.
Okay, I'll second that. I'm interested in... I'm interested in giving this a second too, so that Dr. Phelps can meet with Dr. Willis tomorrow, is what we heard. So I'd love for that to happen and to bring this forward. So yeah, I also wanted to quickly compliment Mr. Jeremiah. Is he still sitting out there? Did he leave? Oh, it is very difficult to speak in front of a board like this, and kudos. That was well done. There he is. Well done. I just wanted to say thank you. I know that's not easy. Thanks very much. So before we vote then, any other discussion? There's been a motion by Mr. Zane, seconded by O'Connor Ratcliffe.
What? I think...
To approve.
Right. Well, I think sort of a question and recommendation. Clearly, staff worked on this and brought it because of apparently from ongoing work that they're doing. We have new cabinet team members, so I think it would seem, I guess, more respectful of the work that staff is doing to allow them to work on this and then bring it back with a recommendation one way or the other. Otherwise, I feel like we're undercutting their work at a time when we have to exercise extreme fiscal restraint.
I think that's essentially the motion at hand, given that Dr. Wilson and Dr. Robinson are going to be meeting tomorrow anyhow. We're just approving this as presented. And
No amendment.
No amendment.
No amendment.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood. So
Right,
you
come forward in
withdrew
August
your
with the-
original amendment,
Correct.
and so there's no amendment,
Correct.
and then staff will come back with.
Correct. August meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So the motion is to approve this item as presented with no amendments.
That's correct.
Okay, and the motion was by Mr. Zane, seconded by O'Connor Ratcliffe. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Good discussion. Thank you. That's important. D501, approval of resolution numbers 104, 2017 through 141-2017, entitled Establishment of Annual Special Taxes for Community Facilities Districts number 1 through 16. Mr. Little.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. This is our annual review and approval of our tax establishing the special taxes for our community facilities districts number 1 through 16. And this evening we have Sandy Burgoyne, our Director of Capital Projects and Planning, and Mr. Jesse Landry from Cooperative Strategies, who I believe are going to make a brief presentation.
Good evening, members of the board, district staff, members of the public. Thanks for taking the time to let us go through the proposed fiscal year 2017-18 special tax levy for the community facilities districts and related improvement areas of the Poway Unified School District. So we prepared a short presentation to kind of summarize what the levy will look like on the various CFDs. And starting off, just to talk a little bit about the timeline for what we'll be doing today. If the board should choose to approve the resolution for these special taxes, we would then take this resolution to the County of San Diego and to enroll those taxes on the upcoming 17-18 property tax bills. Once those are placed on the bills, the first installment's due in December, and then once those are collected, those are used for interest and principal payments on the existing debt service obligations related to the particular CFDs. And then those debt service obligations are paid in March and September of 2018. This next slide's, it kind of rolls through all the different items that we do throughout the year. So it's not just the special tax levy that we're working through the administration of the Community Facilities District. Leading up to today, to do this levy, we have to determine the special tax rates for each parcel that's included within a CFD. So that involves reviewing the upcoming debt service payments, current fund balances, reviewing new development, building permits issued within the CFDs, and then calculating an appropriate levy that's going to cover those existing debt service obligations. In addition to that, throughout the year, we're doing work to review delinquencies. We're reviewing the collections of those special taxes. We're reviewing the special taxes and how they're deposited in various accounts. So we audit all of the account statements associated with these CFDs throughout the year on a monthly basis. We answer phone calls from taxpayers who have questions about their tax, what it's used for, how much their tax is, things like that. And then also we prepare, in addition to the administration reports you see today, we also prepare other reports required for CFDs. That includes CDAC reports, California Debt Investment Advisory Committee reports, the continuing disclosure reports, and a host. As you can see, there's lots of information on this slide. I won't go through every single one, but I just wanted to summarize a little bit of some of what we do throughout the year to administer the special tax levy. I think we'd need a 30 by 30 maybe to see that.
And for all of you, this is just a review of the Community Facilities District and how it came about as a result of the Prop 13 that was passed in 1978 that eliminated a lot of revenues for improvements, so that the CFDs allows public agencies to collect taxes for financing public improvements, which include schools and other facilities, and collect taxes for administration of collecting those fees. And I always like to show pictures of the beautiful houses that we have in the CFD size and the benefits that we have received from 3 of our schools. With that, we'll go to the next slide, which most of you have seen, just to review the 16 CFDs and their areas. You all should have these embedded in your head by now. And then we'll go, and I like to review the names because most of the times you don't have a name equated to it. And if you look at this table, the highlighted, the italics line items, CFD 6, CFD 10, 11, 14, 15, and 16 are the CFDs that also have improvement areas. We have 3 in CFD 6, we have 6 in CFD 10, 3 in 11, 1 in 14, 4 in 15, and 1 in 16.
All right, this next slide really details, well, why do we have to levy the tax every year? This is an expert from one of the bond indentures related to the CFDs, and similar language is within all of the bond indentures related to the CFDs. At bond indenture, that's really an agreement whenever bonds are issued for the CFD between the bondholders, the fiscal agent, and the CFD on how taxes, how all the different funds will flow. One of these covenants that the board makes whenever they approve the issuance of the bonds is that they will levy the tax each year in an amount necessary to pay debt service, and also in an amount that's consistent with the rate and method of apportionment for that particular CFD. So the little expert here says that the district shall effect the levy of the special tax in accordance with the rate and method and the Melrose Act, such that it will be placed on the tax roll with the County of San Diego. This next slide is a summary of all the CFDs and where revenues are planned to be going for 17-18. So you'll see the pie chart off to the left shows the various percentages and dollar amounts related to each of the categories. And then off to the right, you can see the specific information related to that. So one thing to point out is you see that about 90% of the special tax levy coming forward in 17-18 is dedicated towards debt service payments. That's debt service on the specific bonds for each CFD or improvement area, as well as the joint acquisition agreement, and also some certificates of participation through U.S. Bank. So that's the majority of these special taxes go for those purposes. We also have to provide a budget or a cap for administrative expenses, so we always include that as a line item as well. Next is a small anticipated delinquency amount. Typically what we do is we look at the delinquencies in the prior year for each CFD individually, and that's what we project going forward for the next year's delinquencies. And then the last item, which we'll get into a little more detail on the next slide, is related to the infrastructure and surplus special taxes for each of the CFDs. Now to break down, why do we have this amount for infrastructure and surplus special taxes? This really rolls back to what we talked about on the prior slide. The covenant to levy the tax, as described in the rate and method of apportionment, says that we will levy the tax for many of these CFDs at the assigned annual special tax rate. And for some of these CFDs, that will create this infrastructure or surplus special taxes. You see the largest majority there called direct construction of infrastructure. That is related to 3 improvement areas that have not issued bonds yet. So those special taxes have to be collected, and they're actually used for infrastructure improvements prior to the issuance of bonds. So that's why we see $1.5 million or over 50% of that infrastructure surplus coming into that category. The next item are CFDs where the tax is required to be levied at that assigned rate, and then that accounts for $1.1 million. And then finally, the improvement areas also produce a small amount of surplus school facilities at $268,000.
So now we're going to break it down by CFDs, and we always do CFD1 independently because it is under the original Melrose Act prior to the amendment in 1994. This is just a review, and it shows the 5 elementary schools, the middle school, and the high school that were funded with CFD under the lease purchase program. And right now, when we started this, we're over 9,000 parcels, excuse me. CFD 1 was formed between 1986 and 1988. It had an effective 25-year. When Jesse goes through the next slides, you'll notice of the over 9,000 parcels that were originally taxed, we're down to about 4,500 because a lot of those have met their 25-year commitment.
So this next slide really just breaks down the levy specifically for CFD number 1. You can see at the top left, and you'll see this come across on several of the other CFDs as well. We have that it's not built out, the total special tax levy, the administrative expense cap, the max amount of administrative expenses or the budget for that, and as well as the debt service and the anticipated delinquencies. We did see two units developed there in CFD number 1 this last year.
For a reminder for those of you, we have one developer that is finally coming on board between CFD 1 and CFD number 2. It's Merge 56 and Keith Roads.
This next slide, with CFD number 1, when we talked about that covenant to levy at the assigned rate, this next slide is just really intended to show the board and the members of the public. With this CFD number 1, we didn't have that obligation where we had to levy at that assigned rate. So this really just details what the board, what district staff has done in the past to be able to provide relief to homeowners within CFD number 1. If you look on the second to the left column, you'll see that this is what the special tax would be. This is what the homeowners were disclosed and signed up for whenever they purchased a home within the CFD. That's the dollar amount of the tax. The next column over is the administrative reductions that the board has instituted in fiscal year 2001, 2002, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 14, 15, and then finally in 15, 16. If you look all together, over that time period, if someone had purchased a home or built a home in 1996, 97, they would have saved about $6,700 in their special taxes because of the reductions implemented by the board.
This slide shows CFD 2 through 16, and currently there are about 22,500 parcels that are included in these project areas. And it shows the new construction projects. We did use some Melrose money for expansions of existing. And we also, I like to remind the board and members that we are allowed to use Melrose money for interim housing. So while some of these schools were being built prior to us building in Forest Ranch, we had a lot of relocatables that were supported with Melrose taxes.
This next slide is an excerpt from the joint acquisition agreement. And what the joint acquisition agreement is it was a financing mechanism used back in 2014, and that really went all towards the construction of Design 39. And what this says is that the CFDs involved in the joint acquisition agreement shall not initiate any proceedings under the Act to modify the rate and method of such CFD. So basically what that's saying is that they'll keep the rate and method intact and will levy according to the rate and method for those CFDs. Next, we have a breakdown of all CFDs except for CFD number 1. So we get to see a similar pie chart with the different breakdowns. Again, 92.15% of the levy going to support debt service payments. And then down at the bottom right, we see a little bit of where we saw new development over this last year. So we saw some development in 4, some in 12, and then 15 and 16 saw quite a bit of development there with 127 and 147 new units respectively. This next matrix is similar to what we saw for the CFD 1 slide, but really just breaks down the development status of all the CFDs, their total levy, the administrative cap of the CFD, its specific debt service payments, the delinquencies, and then also any remaining funds. If that CFD is related to the joint acquisition agreement, all those remaining funds would then be dedicated towards the repayment of the joint acquisition agreement. One thing to mention is that CFD number 15, while it's being built out, the intention is not to have those CFDs contribute in perpetuity to the JAA, but once CFD number 15 is still under construction right now, so it's still not completely built out and able to support those debt service payments on its own. And then finally, that last column are the available special taxes that we looked at previously, where CFDs are required to levy at the assigned rate, or in some instances may not have bonds outstanding on them.
And then here's the map of the 18 improvement areas, and we have about 7,700 parcels that are being taxed for improvement areas. You can do it. Oh, I'm sorry, that's mine. So when, on the covenant of the improvement areas, as we have shared with the board on several occasions, there's a covenant that we shall tax at the levy rate, and we shall do the 2% increase. The purpose of doing that is to make the lease payments on the certificates of participation with U.S. Bank, which is a private placement, to pay for the surplus special taxes and for the improvement bonds that we issued for other special school facilities projects. Some of those expenditures were used for the admin building. We contributed some of the money towards the SFID for some of the allowable construction projects, and then the second series was used for the RV High School air conditioning, heating, and we're finalizing the remaining $3 million for portion of RV High School's roofs and for Mesa Verde.
Next, we have the pie chart with the breakdown of the improvement area taxes and where those are going to be utilized in 17-18. Again, a high percentage, 85.5%, going towards the debt service payments. And then you see the items that we've already talked about, the direct construction of infrastructure, takes up about $1.56 million, but that's attributable to those 3 CFDs you see down at the bottom that are still in the developing process right now. So they're seeing quite a bit of development, but they're going to continue to have the special taxes that get generated outside of the administrative cap or the anticipated delinquencies for those improvement areas. They're going to be dedicated towards infrastructure leading up to the issuance of bonds. And next we have the matrix for the improvement areas. Going through, you see the total levy is $17.9 million, the administrative cap, the total debt service, the delinquencies, and then we also see the pledge to the certificates of participation. So you see the dollars that are dedicated towards that through these improvement area special taxes. And then finally, you see the combination of the available special taxes and those infrastructure special taxes in that final column. So these next few slides, I just wanted to provide a little bit of the information, a little rundown on what we show in the administrative reports. So it's a summary of the last year's levy along with delinquencies. We show account balances, financial activity. If the CFD was formed after 2001, there is information related to what's called Senate Bill 165, which is basically a taxpayer transparency law that requires any special taxing districts to provide information on where the special taxes are going, where the bond proceeds are spent on, and other information that's pertinent to those taxpayers, the fund account balances and things of that nature. It will also break down the special tax requirement, any development that's occurred, and then finally we conclude with the levy for the upcoming fiscal year. So this portion right here is some of the financial activity that you'd see in any of the CFD reports. So this is an example of what we saw for CFD number 9. You see sources of funds there. We go through the investment earnings in each of the various accounts. We talk about the use of funds over this period with interest payments, principal payments. And just one thing to note, you see that bond proceeds figure in there. CFD number 9 issued refunding bonds in 2016, so that's why you see those bond proceeds coming in. There was bonds that were issued that were then put into escrow to take out the prior bonds and achieve debt service savings. And finally, on the funds and accounts balances, to the left, you'll see the final slide we show where we show the final balance in each of the accounts associated with the CFD. To the right there is the special tax requirement. It shows the calculation where we look at all the current funds on hand, the remaining obligations for the year. That would just be the September debt service payment in 2017. And then finally, all the obligations coming up in the upcoming fiscal year. And then finally, we end that with our special tax levy down at the bottom, which is our special tax requirement for the upcoming year. And then as an exhibit to each one of these administration reports, you also will see detailed accounting statements. Now, these are the audited statements that we do on a monthly basis. This is a summary of through all the months, but behind this is each month's audited account statement. So you can see the transactions, you can see the flow of funds between the various accounts.
So on our district website, about 10 years ago, we started accessing the taxpayer website. Now I'm going to go out of the screen and try to do this live to go into it to show you how it works, but I apologize if it doesn't. So, Steve, I hit the escape, right? And go here. All right, now, if you scroll. So we have by law, we had to put what they call a hot button on the front. So this is called bond disclosure. This takes you to the website, and right now, we are showing what we are required to show is the annual disclosure. No, it just booted out.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. So this is the annual disclosure that the board approved in January for all of the CFDs that we had to report. That's required. If you go back up, if you go to the home page, I'm going to put in, just use a name of Alexander, just as a generic name. You all can try this on your properties. So, I'm just going to scroll on the first person. It will bring up anybody. You can put your name, your APN number, or whatever you want in it, and it'll bring up an item. So this will go to that tax bill for that parcel in our district. If you scroll down, and this includes SFID and CFD, so that's every parcel in our district. So if you click on the blue underline, it will take you to the page that tells you all the information about that CFD. Does an overview. Then what it will do, it will show you every report that we have done for the last 10 years. And then the last one is the context for cooperative strategies if they have any questions. So with that, are there any questions for Jesse or myself?
I have a question for Jesse as the new board member. I actually opened up each and every one of your reports and looked at them. And I was wondering if it's possible in the future, instead of having to open up nearly 20 of these windows and look through them to get to the summary report page, if we can make a PDF that just has all of the summary reports.
Absolutely.
That would be helpful for me.
Yeah, we could absolutely send over an electronic PDF, just with the 1718 if the board would like to review. And we'll just bookmark off the various CFDs and the various reports if that would be helpful.
Yeah, just to be able to look and compare and see and track it, it would be very helpful. Thank you.
Understand completely, yes. Absolutely.
I wrote it.
Not that it's not lots of fun. Good reading on other pages, too. Anyone else
And
have
I know you all
questions or-
read all 37 reports, correct?
I did that in 2 years. I admit it was scanned a little more this year.
I had two questions. First was, so the debt service runs about 85 to 90%, and I think it was 15. Some of the newer CFDs are amassing some funds for dedicated infrastructure. As we move forward, can we move to a pay-as-you-go or a hybrid model so that we're not bonding absolutely everything, that all of the tax revenue?
Are you talking about the school facilities or improvement areas?
Well, either one, if it's possible.
Well, we have a covenant, and we've been in, and Ron and I met today. So there's some options that we're going to be meeting with the team and the attorneys to see what the possibility. So the covenant is that we shall tax at the rate. We are required to tax at the rate. So I have a copy of the rate and method, and what it says in the rate, and that is your primary document.
Yeah.
It says you shall tax at the maximum tax available, and that's according to the annual basis. And then we have a section in the rate and methods for the school facilities that says, in any fiscal year when the annual special tax is collected from development property exceeds the amount needed to make regularly scheduled annual interest and principal payments on outstanding bonds and pay administrative expenses, the school district shall use amount for acquisition, construction, or financing of school facilities in accordance with the Act. This was for CFD 15. So we sort of had a covenant to do that. However, CFD 1, as I have told the board, said you will build schools. That was it. Once the schools are built, then you will start reducing the taxes. That was in the documents, and that's how we were able to do that. That is not the privilege we have for 2 through 16. However, there are options the board can make. One of those options is, on the school facilities side, at the time that the board determines that there are no more needs for Melrose taxes, CFD taxes, and the district no longer has a need for capital facilities projects for those CFDs, you can start looking at calling the bonds, reducing taxes. But that has to have a decision that has to be made. So on the school facilities side, yes. On the improvement area side, no, because the 2% we purposely negotiated to get that surplus to use for, surplus special projects. But you can, if the district and the board determines at some point in time that there are no future needs for capital facilities projects on the west side, because that's where that money has to go, then the attorney, and thank you for hiring Ron, by the way. He has been a joy. He asks good questions and he gets it. So you can start looking at that and make some determination as to do it. Now, you have a covenant to the bond owners. That's your first covenant. When you issued the debt, it says you will collect those taxes, so those bonds will be paid. Can you go and do it without the bonds? I don't know. That's an attorney question. Could you amend the documents and maybe do a reduction or something like that? We are starting to do that. I have brought Ron in so Ron can start working with the CFD attorneys to see what those options are. We are stuck by the covenants right now. We are stuck by the covenants that went out when we sold the debt that are in the official statement. Does that?
Yeah, well, you answered a different question, but it was very interesting information. So just to follow along what you were saying, for the CFDs, the school infrastructure CFDs, you're saying that there is potentially an option once the school's been built to go back and reduce the taxes only if you call in the bonds, or
well that's what we have to work. So you can you reduce the taxes? We have not gotten to verbiage that you can do that. Could you call the bonds early? You could possibly do that.
If it's in the
Could you do a credit and then put it in escrow? There's several things you can look at.
Yeah.
But the board has to make the determination that you no longer need those revenues to support capital facilities projects on the west side.
And then to continue along that with regard to the improvement areas, as you know, my issue in the past was the 2% escalating when the infrastructure had already been built. The debt service was dedicated to that, and we were creating a surplus fund that then took the funds to use elsewhere in the district.
Correct.
And yet, I believe our documents said, I'm not sure what the language is about the 2%. I know the Melrose law says may, but ours
says shall.
Shall.
Yeah, that was a negotiation that we did with all the improvement areas. That was part of the negotiation to be the LEA, to be the conduit for issuing their debt. We agreed to issue their debt so we would get the surplus money so we could use it for surplus, projects, for additional supplemental projects.
Okay. But actually what I was originally referring to was funds that we're collecting. We pretty much bond everything. All of the revenue that we receive then is dedicated to debt service. So I'm just wondering, with some of the new funds that are coming in for infrastructure, can we look to pay as you go and not in order to reimburse the developers for the roads and bridges?
Are you talking about the 3 improvement areas that we haven't issued?
Yeah, exactly.
We are obligated to issue their bonds at the maximum, that would probably, you would probably have to go back and renegotiate because, again, the verbiage said you shall.
Well, when you say well, because everything is informed by the resolution of formation, the resolution of intention, the resolution of formation. I mean, that's the legal document that's binding.
In addition to that, the mitigation agreement entered into with that specific developer, and I believe within that agreement, those mitigation agreements, the district and the CFD were covenanting that they would try to get the maximum amount of funding available through those CFD revenues in order to fund the infrastructure for the community.
I guess, and so that would be a question for the attorney, because my understanding is the mitigation agreement is not binding. It informs the binding legal document, which is the resolution of formation. So it's only the resolution of formation that determines the legal requirements.
Well, I would say the resolution of formation definitely sets all the parameters for the CFD. It sets the bond authorization, the levy tax rates, and things like that. The mitigation agreement really gets entered into right around the same time, and that really is an agreement solely between the district and the developer on how they will manage that CFD. And that can live on for a long time, well after the CFD is formed, and it lives on until all those obligations are met by both sides. The developer agrees to do certain things in that agreement, and then the district and the CFD also agree to do certain things. And one of those items is typically, you know, again, we can take a look at it with the attorney and have them review, but one of those items is typically that for those infrastructure projects, that the district would do everything they can to issue the bonds in an amount that's up to 110 coverage.
Right. But just a last point on it, I mean, the Melrose law doesn't mention the mitigation agreement. It mentions the resolution of intention and the resolution of formation, and that's it. So statutorily, that's what one
The rate
holds,
and method of
controls.
apportionment is a primary document, and that right now that says in all the improvement areas it says you shall. It says you shall do it. Now, we have not issued debt in 2 of the 15 improvement areas and 16. So you are not covenanting because you haven't issued debt yet. So you might have flexibility there. However, that also is monies that you could use for supplemental school projects in this district that you don't have revenues for. So it's a whole big global, and I believe he's got it.
Perhaps maybe Ron, Mr. Little, and Ms. Burgoyne can meet with any interested board members to go into this into depth, like we did with the budget.
I just had one last quick question, and that was just the SB 165, because we didn't, you referenced it, we didn't see it, because how detailed is that disclosure? I mean, for example, does it allow the homeowner to know that their improvement area funds are then going into a surplus fund to be used outside their CFD?
Well, what SB 165 requires is that you basically show the flow of funds as special taxes. So you need to show the dollar amounts that get collected within various funds and accounts associated with the CFD, and you need to show how those funds are spent. So yes, you would detail that information in there. And so that only applies to CFDs formed after 2001 that are under that SB 165. And I think as Ms. Burgoyne went through the disclosure site, that information is available to each and every homeowner. As they type in their information, they're able to pull up reports and find every prior year's reports that shows those detailed accounts. With the SB 165, you can't lapse any months. Every single month has to be accounted for every single year. We have to make sure that everything is included in there to show where all the special taxes are going, all the fund balances, any bond proceeds, what those get spent on. So the requirement is to have very detailed information.
Thank you very much.
All right, so with that, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, on a motion by Dr. Patel, second by Ms. Beatty. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, deep sigh, that's unanimous. All right, D502. Approval of resolution number 98-2017 entitled Application to State Allocation Board for Capital Facilities Funding for Stone Ranch Elementary School Expansion when bond authority is unavailable as required by Title II Code of California Regulations, Section 1859.95.1. Mr. Little, you get the exciting one.
Thank you, Madam President. This resolution will allow us to put Stone Ranch Elementary School on the eligibility list for future state bond matching funds.
that we're not getting.
That
ever.
we're not getting,
Right.
probably.
Okay.
Right.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We're on a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Dr. Patel. Any further discussion? Ms. Beatty.
Just a quick, and this was just on the green sheet. It said that the Board of Education acknowledges there are no funds available for new construction or modernization. But with regard to CFD 6, which is the CFD where Stonebridge or Stone Ranch is, we had cash from the Mellarus, so does that count?
I think this refers to no state funds currently available.
Oh, I get it. Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. With that, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous
Thank you.
again.
Thank you.
All right. D601, this is approval of regular board meeting dates for 2018. Dr. Phelps.
We've listed on this item all of the proposed dates from January to December of 2018. The proposed recommendation to have all the board meetings on the second Thursday of each month, with the exception of January 18th, which is the third Thursday due to the winter break, and April 19th will be on the third Thursday due to the spring break, and on Thursday, June 28th, is the fourth Thursday in June due to the requirement of the LCAP and budget approval. Therefore, there may be called a special board meeting in earlier of June if we find necessary. And again, no meeting in July, and the rest of them are on the second Thursday. So we ask that the board approve the recommended schedule for the regular board meeting dates of the year 2018.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right, that's a motion by Ms. Beatty, second by Mr. Zane. My only comment is that last year we had an issue with the October board meeting overlapping with our PUSD College Fair. I think probably by moving it that won't be an issue, but let's coordinate that this year. I like to rep my college at that. So
That's why
I don't want to miss it again.
We're asking for approval early so that all of our schools, sites, and administrators can avoid all of the board meeting dates to not put any major school events or school events on these dates.
Fantastic. Okay. In that case, then, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Sellers, I can't see you now, so you're okay. Great. That's unanimous. D602, approval to cancel the July 13th, 2017 regular board meeting. Dr. Phelps.
We're, in keeping in tradition of Poway Unified School District, we're asking that the board approve the cancellation of the scheduled July 13th regular board meeting as presented, as to be able to accommodate all of the staff's vacation during the month of July, so that we all may reduce our accrual vacation hours.
Motion to approve.
Second.
That's a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Dr. Patel. Is there any discussion on this item? All right, seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We've already passed all of E. That takes us to F, our first read. F113, proposed adoption of high school textbooks, first reading. Dr. Robertson.
Thank you, Madam President. And tonight we bring forward as a first read textbooks in support of our CTE high school courses that we align and strengthen with our current pathways. Just to let you all know, the Intro to Finance will be at Del Norte, along with Business Law, the Sports Medicine for Mount Carmel, and Sound Production at Poway High School. This is a first read.
So no action necessary, but are there any questions for Dr. Robertson? All right, that takes us to G, our information items. G313, enrollment report number 10, 2016-17. Mr. Little.
I missed that one.
Are there any questions?
For the board's edification, this is the enrollment report for 2016-2017.
Any questions for Mr. Little? We've been tracking this for more months than you have, so.
It's trending.
Yes. Okay. Okay, seeing no questions, looking good. Item H is new business from board members. There's nothing here. That takes us to K, which is our adjournment, and thank you very much for your board statement this earlier, Ms. Beatty, and in memory of Todd Gutschau, I'd like to adjourn in his honor this evening. So we're adjourned now. I'll say the next regularly scheduled board meeting now is August 10th, 2017, here at 6 o'clock. Sorry, and we're adjourning at 8:30 on the dot. Thank you.